Am I recording now? Okay, cool. Okay.
I'm gonna make you the host too, Billy.
Okay, cool.
All right, have a good
All
meeting.
right. Cool. So, hello everybody. Today I thought it would be cool to well, since I know everybody, not everybody knows HTML and CSS. This is going to be kind of a deep dive into that. There's going to be a lot of information that I'm just going to be throwing at you. Um, it's going to be recorded, and I'm going to have the code that we write, or the code that I'm basing today off of. I'm going to have that up on GitHub for you guys. And the video is hopefully going to be on YouTube. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be going through. But basically, I kind of wanted to, well, the kind of idea that we're going with this semester is that we're going to show you kind of like how you can do things in a general way, and then you guys can do whatever you guys want with it. So I'm not going to be showing how to build the site specifically. And next week, if you guys want to take what we've learned and code the actual header, and then we could look over everybody's code, and I could do a little bit of code review and say like, this is good, this is bad. I think that would be great as learning experience for you guys. Whether you've written code or whether you're watching me look at other people's code, I think that'd be a great learning experience if you guys are interested in that. So, anyways, I probably should have asked you guys if there's any sites that you think are really cool, but I found a site that I thought was kind of cool. We're going to be basing this today off of pytorch.org. And I thought this was pretty cool. This background is pretty cool. And we're going to be hopefully have enough time to get to these how to do dropdowns. And the cool thing about dropdowns is that you don't need any frameworks. This is all going to be straight up HTML, CSS, and also if you see how the header fades in, it's like faded here and it fades in. I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do that today if we have time for that. So really quick, what I'm going to actually I already have this set up. What I did is I made a file. I called it PyTorch clone, and I dragged it into VS Code. This is my favorite text editor. I named it index.html. So we're just going to be doing one HTML file. It's going to have everything. So I guess from a beginner's perspective, an HTML file stands for hypertext markup language, but that doesn't really matter. It's basically the guts of what a website is. This is view source. If you right click and hit view source, you'll be able to see all of the code, the HTML that the site is based off of. So like I said, we're going to basically be doing this site right here. I'm going to go through all the gotchas and the little things that go into it. Are there any questions? I guess there wouldn't be any questions. I didn't really go over anything, but if you have anything to say, go ahead and say it. I won't stop you guys. All right. So if you guys pull up an HTML file, I guess the most basic thing. So HTML is composed of tags, and this is a tag. This is a start tag, and this is an end tag. The end tag, so you have this less than sign, the tag name, and then the greater than sign. And to end the tag, you put the slash here. So that's just a basic. Some tags don't end, like image tags. They kind of like end themselves, if that makes sense. But yeah, almost every tag has an opening and a closing tag. So this is basically a website. Every website is split up into a head and a body. The head is kind of the stuff that you don't see. You pull in resources, you declare styles, you add fonts, you do the title, this thing up here, right there. I'm not sure if it shows. Inspect elements. Yeah, expect element is how we're going to be getting through this thing. Sorry, I don't have like chat open. But yeah, this is inspect element. And if you right click and you see this is basically how we're going to be getting through today and making this site. So you see that they have their HTML. You see there's their head, there's the body that they made. And we're going to have our own. So the head is mostly for things that you don't see. And the cool thing is that when you mouse over something, it'll tell you where it is on the site. So if you mouse over this, see this is going to be the header that we're going to be making. Okay, and then another thing, you could double click the file that we're working on. That's the shortcut. This opens the file. How do I want it set up? Like this. So here is PyTorch and here's our site. So yeah, we have the basic layout of the site. This is the head, this is the body, and let's get into how it's going to look. So the head actually isn't the header of the site. The header of the site is going to go in the body. So all websites are split up into divisions, or divs for short. And these are like sections of a site. And section is really vague. You're going to see we're going to have massive divs that span like the entire page, and really small divs that are only going to be like one link, or maybe you won't even see them at all. They're going to be part of the drop-down box or whatever. So we're going to set IDs. You can edit a lot of properties of divisions, like of any tag actually, like this. So we're going to give it an ID of header. And these are important for identifying which element is which. And there are two ways to identify an element, either by its ID or its class name. So you could do class equals and then this. And you could give an element multiple class names. So we say red or blue or big. And we can select multiple things by this. So this is going to be the header. I'm going to call this the content box. I guess that's kind of a vague word, but maybe just content. It's going to be the content of the site. This is going to be the footer, like the main body. Like you have a header at every site, every page on a site. You have the footer on every page of the site, but the content of the site kind of differs. As we get deeper into front end, we're going to explore how you could, write a header that you use across multiple sites, and when you change it, it changes on every single page. But for now, we're going to leave it at this. I'm going to add a title tag, and you might notice that like you could have like a tag that's like this split across multiple lines, or you could have a tag that's all on one line. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call this PyTorch example, and you're going to see right here it says index.html, the file name obviously, and now it says PyTorch example, or whatever I called it. I can't see it because of the zoom overlay. So right now our site is still really lame. Now I'm going to do a style tag. This is a pretty important tag. This enters into a new language called CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. So this style tag is how we're going to style a site, give it colors, width, height. CSS is really powerful. We're going to be like 90% of what we do is going to be through the CSS. So we have this header, and when I don't know what to do, I'm just basically gonna yoink. I'm gonna go into, okay, yeah, so you could right click, inspect element, or on Mac, you could hit Command Option J, or on Windows, you can hit Control Shift J. Kind of useful to know. Go to elements, and this thing is really cool because you can click something and it'll tell you which element it is. So you can see we have this element here, and these are all the CSS attributes that it has. And here is a pretty important one. The height of the element is 90 pixels. So we can do that too. So how you write CSS, it looks like this. This part right here is called the selector. Now there's a lot of different things you could do with selectors, and you could change it in a lot of different ways. Yeah, you can also create a separate CSS. Thanks, Steven. But right here, we're going to be doing it all in one file just to make it simpler for us. Big sites, most normal sites have all of their stuff split across multiple documents, but we don't. It's cool. It's cool. So yeah, this is the selector. This hashtag right here, I'm going to call it hash here on out, means that we're selecting an ID. So we can have a dot, which is would be something, if anything, as like a class header. We're doing a hash because it's an ID, and there's only one of them. And that's the main distinction between IDs and classes. So we're going to do height is 90 pixels. There are a couple different elements there. You could do, sorry. What am I thinking of? Like you could do pixels or percentages. I totally blanking on the word. So the height is 90 pixels, and we know, what else do we know? The color right here is 0 red, 0 green, 0 blue. That's black. And then this is alpha, meaning how transparent it is. You can see when we scroll down, the alpha gets bigger until it's at 1, or until it disappears and it's just RGB instead of RGBA. So we're going to be doing background of RGBA 0.17 for now. When we refresh, we're going to see it's like this. And another thing that we want to do is the scroll bar. So we want to have like content to scroll by, but we don't actually want to make any content. So to do that, we're just going to set the height of the content div to be pretty big. I'm going to have it at 150 VH or maybe 200. VH stands for viewport height. So this would be 2 times the size of the screen. I'll do min height because it can be bigger. Say we had like more than 2 pages worth of actual meaningful content, then it'll stretch out to be that big instead of like cutting off the content at 2 times the screen height. So now we have a scroll bar. We're scrolling down. There's nothing. So let's make the footer. Oh, okay. So I'm just applying styles to these 3 divs that we created earlier. So I'm not like doing anything super magical here. I'm just giving properties to these things that we defined before that have like nothing to them. I'm going to set the footer height to be 500 pixels, and I'm going to set the background to black. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to specify colors. I should have mentioned this before. There's a lot of different ways to specify colors. You can do RGB, RGBA to do the red, green, and blue between 0 and 255. In this case, I guess it's 0 to 1. For alpha, it's 0 to 1. And you could do hex. So this is also black. This is also black. There's a 3 and a 6 character hex code, but we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go with black. And when we scroll down, that's kind of big. There's kind of big too. I'm going to say that's good. Okay, so something that you might be noticing is these little borders around there. Okay. When you go over to here, it takes up the whole screen. How are we going to fix that? So what we're going to do, this is because actually, I wonder if we could just pull it up so we can see it. I guess we can't. It's the padding. Okay, yeah, you can see there's this margin on the body of 8 pixels on each side. So each element can have a margin, which separates it from the next element, and padding. We'll get into that later, but if you have a border around the element, it's going to be around the padding, but outside the margin, or the margin is going to be outside the border. I hope I'm not going too fast, guys. If you have any questions, do you guys have any questions? I kind of went through a lot. No questions? Everybody's good? All right, cool. So yeah, well, I was going to go through how to get rid of this margin. So we can actually select the body. You can select any tag. So you can select the HTML tag and the body tag. And this comma means we're selecting both of them separately. So we're selecting the HTML. So that's this tag and this tag. And we're not going to select the head element because that doesn't display anything. But the body element, is our actual body of our page. And if you mouse over the body, inspect elements, you can see that the entire page is highlighted. So we're just going to set margin to 0 and padding to 0. Man, I didn't even go over syntax. You sure you guys don't have any questions? Like the syntax, the semicolon, I guess some of you guys already know this stuff, so you guys are good. But for you guys that don't know this, I'm kind of worried that I'm going a little fast. All right, so there we go. We've gotten rid of the margin on the body. And it goes across the screen pretty cleanly. So now what we want to do, when we scroll down, we want this to stay at the top, like it is here. So to do that, that's a simple thing. That's a position. And you can see there's a lot of different positions. There's absolute, which means it's kind of floating wherever. There's fixed, which is what we're going to do. There's relative, static. I'm actually not sure what the default is, but maybe it's, okay, I don't want to say anything and be wrong. Maybe it's static. I did anyways. But okay, so our element is fixed and it's disappeared. What happened? It's actually gone. I'm pretty sure the actual issue is because we didn't say the width of the element. The width should be 100%. Yeah, that was actually the issue. There actually could be a lot of issues. There could be a lot of different causes to a lot of different problems. And I think that's kind of what makes frontend so interesting. Maybe it's not like super interesting, but there's a lot of different things that could go to like this disappearing. One of them could be that it's just off the screen somewhere. We're not seeing it. Could be the width or of itself, or the display type, or the position type. It could be a ton of things. But yeah, just adding the width seems to fix it. You can see it always stays at the top. So before we go any further, I'm going to grab the images that we're going to need. Now, you guys might be wondering what's causing this cool gradient effect in the background. And when we see, yeah, it's this class, the main background class. You see, it's just an image. So if we go to pytorch.org and then paste, I'll put this in the chat. Whoop. Steven asked because the body itself has padding. Yeah, the body itself has margin, which is the same thing as padding, I guess. But yeah, that's what's causing it. So I posted the link to the image in chat, and this is save image as. Sorry, I have my system language in Russian. I'm just going to call it background. Save on desktop. Okay, so now I have it in here. I just put it in the same file as my index.html. So to get that going, that's going to be in our content div. We're going to do an image tag, source of background.jpg. This is a relative path. If I did this, this would be an absolute path, and you don't want to do that because that's going to be like the root of your entire system. Then you're going to have to do like /user/ your username /desktop /pytorch clone /background. This is just relative, so it's relative to the HTML file. And this is that one exception that's a self-closing tag, so it closes itself. You don't need a separate tag to close it. This image is kind of big. So I'm going to fix that by doing class is background image. I do that because you could have more than one background image. It doesn't matter if you made it an ID, works just as well. And the width is going to be 100%. So that fixes the scroll bar in the X direction. And that actually doesn't look that bad. Yeah, we kind of killed it. Let's see, the height is 570 pixels. I'm just going to code that in manually too. 70 pixels. Kind of shaping up. So the next thing we're going to need is this logo. I'm going to do this to get it. This is the like select feature. I just click on it, and where is it? Yeah, over here, the background image / assets. Yeah, that's it. It's hard to see because it's transparent, because it's white. It just blends in. I'm going to paste that in the chat as well. Padding is outside. Padding is inside, margin is outside. Yeah, it is. So I'm going to save that as well. I'm just going to call this logo. And same thing. This is an SVG file, which is a different type of image that's usually used for logos and stuff like that. But it's no biggie. You could still display it with an image tag. So what do we want to work on next? I mean, we should go for the header. The header is the rest of the program, basically, except for the, yeah, I mean, that's the header too. Okay. Where are we going to start? Let's see how their header's set up. Okay, so it looks like they have this element. And inside of that, they have a container. And inside the header container, okay, they have a container for the big thing, another thing, and then the logo's there. That's its own thing. And the main menu is a list. Cool. One thing that we're gonna have to figure out is how we're gonna get this centered. Actually, no, they centered it already, but you could, well, let's get to it. Okay, so let's format it the same way. They have another div that they called it a container. Guess I'll do the same thing. And then we have, I don't think we need this other div. It's kind of dumb. I feel like it's kind of redundant. So then we have the header right there. They made it an A tag. An A tag is it's short for anchor. It's a link. I'm going to be doing this. So href with just a hash means that it's a link to nowhere. It's kind of like a placeholder value, just so your mouse like changes to a pointer. It doesn't do that if you don't include that. So I'm just going to throw the image in there. Source is logo.svg, self-closing. That's kind of big. Let's see what they did to get it small. They hard-coded the width and the height. Well, I guess we're going to do that too. That's usually not like a great solution, but at some point you have to kind of hard-code things, right? Oh, geez. I'm just going to give it an ID since we're only going to have one logo on the page. Select it. The width is 108 pixels. The height is 27 pixels. Hold up. I probably got to be selecting the image itself. So something you can do with your selectors right here, and let's see how that looks. Looks good. So something you can do with your selectors, you can put a space, and this selects all the images inside of our logo. So there's only one image inside of the logo ID. And by the way, you could stylize it like this if you'd like to make it easier to read. I just want everything to be concise right here. So that is the logo. I think it looks pretty much how it should look. It's just off by a bit. We'll fix that later. So the next thing we're going to be doing is they had this div called main menu, and then they had a list. So I guess we're going to be doing that. UL stands for unordered list. It's bullet points, but they modified it. So instead of going down, it goes sideways. Class main menu, and then the unordered list. And how do they have all the items as list items? Okay, so li stands for list item, and I have a special class for it. I think we can forego the class. href of, I'll actually show you what it is without the hash. The first one they have is ecosystem. Okay, I'm just going to do one right now. So yeah, this is the a tag, the link tag when you don't have an href. This is actually just an unordered list, and then that's a list item. So when we add an href to it, we get that. We get this. Now it's blue, and it does cool things when we mouse over it. That's kind of what we want. I mean, that's not exactly what we want, but we're going to be styling this later with CSS. So they had ecosystem, mobile, blog, tutorials. I'm just only going to be doing a couple of these. Mobile, blog. I want this docs just so you can see the dropdown. Sources. And the last one was GitHub. When we look at it, it looks pretty ugly. So what are we going to do to get it all on one line? Let's actually see what they did. And you guys could do this too, by the way. Just see what like any other site did, and try to figure out what they did to get their site looking the way they did. It looks like this is display flex. Let's try doing that. I'm going to select the specific list inside of main menu. So instead of affecting all unordered lists, maybe we have like an unordered list later down that we actually want to be a list. But this unordered list we're going to convert to being sideways, and we probably don't want that to every one of the lists. So that's only going to be in the main menus that we have. So they did display flex. This just changes it to a flex box, and it actually does get it all on one line. This is pretty messy with the dots. Something you can do, you can change the list style to none, and that will get rid of that. I'm actually going to select all of the links now, and you could edit their color. I'm actually going to make them white, but I want to show you variables first, so I'm going to save that for later. I want to get rid of the underline, so this is going to get rid of the underline. Actually, I'll show you the variables now. So this is a special selector. Did I get that right? No, I didn't. This is the special selector. This selects kind of everything. And it's normal to put your variables here, your CSS variables. And the cool thing about variables is that you can specify, something for later that they use in multiple places. So the way you do variables is you do this dash dash and the variable name. So I'm just going to call it white, and it's going to be white. But say I want it to be like a little bit off white, just for like the style of the site. I don't want to go back and change like every single thing I styled white to like this very slight white. I'll just have this variable here. And then to reference this variable, you do color and then do this var white. So that's how you get the value of a variable. So it's going to be white. And see, it changes all of them to white. And that's because they're all anchors or links. And if I change like this variable to be red or something, we change that to be red too. Okay. What do we want to do next? Let us figure out the font, because this is Times New Roman, and the font size and stuff. I don't think it looks very nice. So let's see what they used, which font they used. They used Freight Sans. Let me see where they get this from, because this probably isn't in your computer. Ooh. Where did they get it from? Okay, I don't want to pull, I don't want to spend too much time on that. The thing is that you're probably not going to have Freight Sans. I'll teach you how to change, like pull in a custom font later, but Freight Sans is a custom font. The one that you guys are probably going to see is Helvetica, and this is a comma separated list, so it uses Freight Sans if it has it. Helvetica, if that's available, then Helvetica New, Helvetica, then Arial, then sans serif if nothing is available. And sans serif just picks any font that's sans serif. So since we want this to affect everything, you see they use a special asterisk operator, which selects everything on the page. We could use the root operator, which is the same thing. Font family, and paste what we copied. I want to put a quote around that. I didn't save. Yeah, so now this is probably Helvetica because I'm on a Mac. Windows doesn't have Helvetica. When I was making this earlier, it used Arial. And Arial kind of looks bad, I think. An issue that we're going to run into is that we can't get we could copy the font weight, which is like how thin the letters are, but I don't think we'll get to like the same weight as they have. Yeah, I guess we don't have a thinner style. Oh well. For the font size, let's go 20 pixels. I think that looks pretty good. Now we got to get this all on one line and figure out how this is done. So first, let's bring it in on the sides. The cool thing about this is that we have multiple elements here. See, we have this guy and we have this guy. So, oh, and something that's pretty cool is that you can edit your code right in here. So I could change the width of this element to be like 80%. Oh, and I'll center it. That's how you center elements that are display block, by the way. You set the margin on the left and the right to auto, and it'll center on the center. If you're dealing with an inline element, different displays types are treated differently by the styles. So that's kind of part of the puzzle. Yeah, and we kind of do need an element inside of an element. Otherwise, we're not going to see the header go all the way across. If we change the width of like this element, it's important that we have this element inside of the header. And something that's important to note, when you do this like this and then you refresh, your changes are going to be gone. So you have to remember what they were and make them again over here. So we changed the container element. So yeah, that gets the style back. You can see like most of our code right now is probably CSS compared to HTML. And that's how it is for most sites. There's a lot of styling that goes into it. So now let's make this some spacing between these elements. What we can do for each list item, I have to add a new selector. I'm going to select all of the list elements inside of the list inside of the main menu. Remember, that's how spaces work. It's kind of like nesting. The list elements inside of the unordered list inside of main menu. I'm going to add some margin on there. I forgot to mention so with this is two numbers. There's margin on the left, up, right, and bottom of each element. And you can specify more or less. So if I did 0 and I specified one number, that'll set all the margins up, down, left, and right to 0. If I do like 10 pixels, it'll set them all to 10 pixels. If I do 2, this number is going to be used for up and down, and this number is going to be used for left and right. So what I can do is I could set up and down to 0 since I don't want them to have any spacing on the top or bottom, and do like 10 pixels, let's say. Yeah, so that's how you get like a decent spacing. I say 10 pixels, maybe a little bit more, 15. I think that looks good. So I'm going to roll with that. Yeah, so the next thing we should focus on is how to bring PyTorch down, how to get this all in one line. So this is obviously all in one line, but the logo is way up there. So if we look at how they did it, yeah, see, this is the thing that does it. Their position is absolute on the logo, and then they moved it manually. But they moved it relative to this guy. But our guy is a lot bigger. Yeah, their container is really small, but ours is pretty big. Well, let's set the position to, so you have to select the entire logo element. Position is absolute. Okay, that's good. And yeah, it's already down to one line. Now this is kind of weird having it look like this, but if you actually mess around with the PyTorch site, you see that it has the same problem. Did you see that? Yeah, it has the same problem. So actually, we're doing fine. This is how it's supposed to be. So now, I mean, we could see how they solved it. We could see how they solved it. What did they do to prevent it from happening? They just made they said this, yeah, there you go. This is the exact line that fixes it for them. They have this main menu as a flexbox, and then they justify content to the end. So they just align it to the right. So this thing is loading by itself on the left. So let's do that. Our main menu. Yeah, so it's going to be pushed over to the right. So then we select the main menu, display flex, make it a flex box, and justify content flex end. Ooh. Did I forget to apply? The position is absolute. Oh. This thing is big again. Okay, so how did they get this smaller? Because our thing is big and theirs is small. Let's see what they did. They did position relative. That actually seems to fix something. So let's do that. We're putting it on the container. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember what this is. It's because of the margin, the default margin on the ordered list. You can see that the actual content is the blue and the margin is the orange. So there's a lot above and below that makes this element big. So if we just set margin 0, yeah, we can see that the actual size of the container is what it should be. So we have to select the unordered list and set margin to 0. That's going to fix that. Now the only issue is that ours is way up there and theirs is down low. So what they did is they made this a flexbox, or Basically, with flexboxes, what you can do is you can, yeah, there's a flexbox. You can align things centered vertically, and that's what they did. So that's what we're going to do. So this is the overall big selector, which should be header. We just do display flex, and align item center. This is it. Align items center. Yeah. Cool. So I would say that we are pretty good for the header. So I'm going to pause there really quickly. Does anyone have any questions? I know I went through like a ton of actual material and I probably went too fast. There's a lot of materials though that you'll have after this. I'll have the code that we're working on uploaded, and hopefully this recording will help you guys out a lot. Oh, the font was Adobe Suite. Yeah, there's no way we can import that. All right, no questions? Alrighty. Okay, so we have a lot of code done already. I guess now's the time for cool stuff. So I want to cover the easiest trick to do, which is the making the header darker. This is actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, this actually does involve JavaScript, which I haven't taught you guys at all about, but hopefully, I have a question. Do you know what align center applies to? Yeah. Is align a tag? There's a lot of aligns. There's align items, self, content. So align items is what we used. Align items only works
Yeah.
on. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't get that.
You're cutting out a lot.
Oh, really?
Sorry. Yeah,
Wait,
you're good now, but
have I been cutting out like a lot the whole time?
no, just like the past 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. My internet's pretty bad, but okay, that's good. Okay, so with align, there's like a lot of different stuff. With the one we used, align items, only works for flex boxes. So you have to have display flex on the parent element, and there's a great resource for Flexbox. It's Flexbox cheat sheet. I spelled that wrong. CSS tricks. Yeah, CSS tricks. This has everything that you'd ever need to know about flexboxes, and like single-handedly, like if you're confident on your CSS and stuff, this will teach you all you need to know about flexboxes. The actual thing for for aligning things to the center, if the element inside is not display block, if it's display inline, or if it's text or an image or anything, you could center that by using text align center, which only works on those elements. It doesn't work on block elements and that stuff. I would say the Flexbox stuff is by far the most powerful like toolbox that you could use for this kind of stuff, though. So yeah.
I know in a lot of past projects I've used certain display methods for like responsive design. How would you approach something like that?
Like making it work for mobile too?
Yeah.
I would just so there's a lot of different angles you could approach it from. I would say you could get by like making most things like percentages. So we actually made the margin on this as a percentage. The width is 80%. So the rest of the 20% is screen real estate that's not being used. I would say that works until you're like right here maybe. So you could have a screen selector and you could actually see this is what they do on this site to make it work. Yeah, so they use these media selectors, these min width tags, media selectors, and then min width. This is for screen sizes 992 pixels and up. This one's for 768 pixels and up. And you could see that they actually hard coded different things. And that actually makes it work pretty well and makes it pretty responsive for most screen sizes. I would say like using media selectors with a combination of having most of your numbers in percentages or like the numbers that matter in percentages, I'd say that's like a really good combo for making things responsive. Does that kind of answer it? I'm not sure if that was kind of like the root of what you're getting at, but yeah. Wait, I can't hear you, Steven.
I said not really, but it was kind of a loaded question. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. All right. So I guess there's no more questions. We'll go on to this thing, which is making the header fade to black. This requires JavaScript, like I said, which is an actual proper programming language, unlike HTML and CSS. So you can go to the console over here. If you inspect element and then go to the console, you can see this little console right here, and you can do normal things, console.log, hi. This is how you print. You could do like a +5, and I'll say 10. You know, this is a console for the programming language. Something cool is you can modify CSS with JavaScript. So you can do document.get element by ID. And I hope this guys reminds you of Python if you've taken Python or other scripting languages if you know them. So this isn't too foreign to you guys, but you can call it document.get element by ID. Let's say we get the header. You see it actually does return the header element. You can mouse over it and we can see all the things there. And we could set the style, or we could view the style. This is the style. And we could change the background. Set it to like red or something programmatically. So something really cool is we could listen for like scroll events, like when you scroll down, and we could change the background style of the element. And we could do that by window.scroll y. And that's going to be 0 for when we're at the top and 600 for when we scroll down a bit. So yeah, and then we could add a event listener by doing add event listener, document.add event listener. And then we could put in a function. This might be a little foreign to you guys since it's anonymous functions. I thought I'd show you guys since I think it's really cool. This is the script tag. And this is where we enter into JavaScript. That's the cool thing about HTML. You could just kind of intermix different languages and it's just all totally fine. So this is the start of JavaScript. So we can do document dot add event listener, or add event listener. And the event we're listening for is scroll. And this is pretty cool. So this is a function that I'm declaring on the spot. And I'm passing it to this other function. So this function is going to be called when I scroll. So let me do something simple like say hi in the console. So refresh. And this is the console. When I scroll, you could see it prints hi a bunch of times. So we're going to be using that thing I showed earlier, where we set the background to something. And it's going to be document.get element by ID. This is going to be the header. Style.background equals. Now for up here, we have 0, 0, 0, which is black, and 0.17 for the alpha. So you can just paste that in there. And we're just going to change this number right here. So let's make a new variable called alpha. You need to do that with the let keyword. Let alpha equal, and remember how I said the scroll y is where we're scrolling in pixels. This is in pixels, by the way. So we could do window.scroll y divided by 500 plus 0.17. And we're going to have to do math.min.1. So what this is calculating is it's basically between 0.17 and 1. And when we scroll to 500 pixels, that'll be this being 1, but it's going to be a little bit before that because we're adding 0.17. And math.min gets the smallest number. So when we go above 1, nothing weird and glitchy happens. So then we could add that with normal string concatenation. This should be familiar to you guys if you've done Python. I hope I'm not going like too far out there because I know this is definitely not that easy to comprehend. But we can see that it works with making the header fade in, fade out. I'll go back to the code. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Dude, you went so fast.
Yeah, it did go pretty fast. I mean, we're kind of like way past time, but I really wanted to show that. Yeah, I kind of just like introduced a new language and kind of dumped that on you really fast. But yeah, I wanted to get to drop down boxes, but I guess we're gonna have to call it there. So I'm just gonna stop sharing. That's where I'm gonna leave it at. I'll post the code in Slack and also in the chat really quick. Also, the code that I'm showing has the other feature implemented with the drop-down box. I think that's pretty cool. You don't see a lot of drop-down boxes without Bootstrap anymore, but that is without Bootstrap. I guess I'll ask one last time. Does anyone have any questions?
I asked a question in the Slack channel last night about wondering, because as far as I know, it hasn't been answered yet, but it was about Bootstrap. Web dev beginners.
Wait, I'm actually not in that channel.
I said,
I'm actually not in that channel.
Okay, I can just go ahead and read it for you.
All right.
I said, whenever I express interest in web development, I always hear people like talking about Bootstrap, Skeleton, and he's kind of wondering how you feel about it as like someone who's programmed websites before and knows kind of what he's doing.
Yeah. I really don't like Bootstrap or most other frameworks. I feel like you bring in so much to your site. Like the size of Bootstrap is actually massive. I think it's like a megabyte. And you also bring in jQuery. so you're bringing in like a whole set of libraries, and if you're not going to use jQuery, the only thing they use jQuery for is that little header. Like, you know how in the PyTorch thing, when your screen size got small, they put like a dot 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 in the upper right instead of like the whole thing.
Hmm.
A lot of sites will do that, and that's the only thing Bootstrap uses. Bootstrap uses jQuery for,
Wow.
like that, and like maybe drop downs too. But you actually don't need jQuery. You don't need jQuery for the drop downs, at least.
What's it used for then? A lot.
I mean, it's used for, like, you know how we had that event, the event listener right now, just now, where we scroll
Mhm.
down and we change the thing, the opacity. You can modify that too
Yeah.
with jQuery, and some people like jQuery because they're used to it, or back then it used to be a lot easier in jQuery, but now JavaScript's kind of evolved and gotten to a point where it's really easy to do everything with JavaScript,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like jQuery is still there, but it's kind of an old school framework. So I don't like Bootstrap at all because I feel like